Hi, Broadway fans. Welcome back for another week of Broadway Breakdown here on Popcorn Talk Network. It is the end of June, and we're talking Fun Home, so don't go too far.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
This is like the most upbeat song I think on the entire soundtrack. With all these little children voices.
It's fun. It's fun, but they're singing in a funeral home, which is something I completely love because
the darkness. It's like she references in the book. We'll talk about the book a little bit later, but it's like the Addams Family.
Yeah, I love 6 Feet Under, so I love that kind of like having a whimsical, humorous moment in a funeral home.
I also love the like Michael Jackson reference in the background music. Which
yeah. Kind of like A, B, C.
Yeah.
We're in a funeral home. 1, 2, 3.
Super happy.
Right, exactly.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Broadway Breakdown. Like I said, we're talking Fun Home today. I am your host, Brianna Phipps. You guys can reach me at bphipps14 on Twitter and Instagram. And Jackie, where can they find you?
I'm 123 Jackie B on all platforms, and that's Jackie JACQUE.
We had talked about this before the show started, that we didn't plan it, but it kind of just worked out that we had a Fun Home plan for this, which is a very large theme, and it is coming out of the closet and being in the closet and becoming okay with your sexuality.
Yeah, it's the first Broadway musical with a lesbian protagonist. There's just not like a lot of musicals that feature lesbians.
For us to end our last show for the month of Pride with this musical just seems kind of appropriate.
Yeah, I'm happy that I realized that today too. I was like looking at all the Pride posts on Twitter today, and I was like, oh yeah, we're doing Fun Home, a very Pride positive musical.
This musical was written. It's a graphic novel written by Alison Bechdel.
Yes,
and was turned into a musical from that graphic novel. So I think we should start off kind of feeling out, for those maybe that haven't read the graphic novel, a little bit between the play and the novel, what is different, what's kept the same. I think that overall the feel of the novel is still there in the play.
Yes. And I like how in the play she kind of ties in her, like the kind of drawing she wants to do is like comic drawing, graphic novel drawing, and her dad like thinks that's plebeian, as he thinks so many of the things.
He's a very pretentious sort of.
Yeah, so many of her ideas that she's so drawn to. It's interesting because they're like she says in the play, alike and not alike. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that she's drawn to that he's like, oh no, that's just not acceptable.
One thing that I read in the novel, a line that I loved, and I wished it was kind of in the play in some, is that she mentions like how he always wants to dress her up. He always wants to put her in dresses and pearls. And
there is a scene in the play in which he makes her wear a dress, and she's like very upset about it. And there's this like little moment before she sings the song about the keys, which we will show you guys later, where he's making her put like a barrette in her hair.
Yeah.
And she is basically saying, oh, why don't I just have a crew cut?
But the line from the book was like her just realizing like he was trying to dress me up because he couldn't dress himself up.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yes. That
so
doesn't.
He was trying to impart. Like, I mean, I know it goes without saying, but it just was like such a profound line to read.
Right.
And that she wanted everything that he was wearing and that he got to do.
Right.
So that they wanted from each other what they couldn't have.
Exactly. And there was they have something similar in that like they both struggled with being gay. And then the large difference is like, her as a lesbian, she was attracted to the more like butch gay, the more masculine, and then he was attracted to like very like feminine.
Except for the one guy.
Yeah.
The camping dude.
Yeah,
that was like a very off character for him.
His personal interests, I think I was thinking of more, were like he loved decorating and dresses and art.
No, I knew what you were saying, but I was just like, even like when you look at the other men he was kind of into, like there was like either a youngness about them or a feminine side about them, and then there's just that one random guy.
Yeah.
That's like very mountain man.
Yes. I think he was just experimenting with whatever was in the neighborhood.
Whatever you can.
But fun fact, Alison Bechdel, she's like a kind of like a philosopher almost. I mean, I would call her a philosopher. I mean, it's hard because it's like when you write a graphic novel, then people start to like see you in a different way and put you in like a different box or whatever. But I would call her a philosopher. And she came up with this test that's called the Bechdel test. That's a test for feminist film, but I mean, you can apply it to other media. And it's basically, does the film or piece of art or work of art contain, and maybe it doesn't even apply to film. I learned this in film school. So I should give like full disclosure, like maybe she came up with this theory for all art, and the way it was presented to me,
the way that you took it was
just through the film. So it's, do you have two women in the piece? Do they talk to each other? And do they talk to each other about something that's other than a man? And you would be surprised that if you apply this to a lot of films today and a lot of television shows, I think they're getting better just because the format is longer. So you might have, like for broadcast TV, you would have like 20 episodes to be able to like have women talk to each other about something else other than a man. But you'd be surprised at how much film does not pass this test. Like, you either have like so few women and they never interact, or when they do interact, it's a conversation, and not just like saying like, oh, I like this guy and I think he's cute, or what about him, or whatever. But it's amazing how the conversation revolves around the guy. And there's so few, and I think her point is there's still so few like film and TV shows that really center around women and women's issues. Yeah. Which is something wonderful about this play, is that not only does it center around like her and her issues with coming out of the closet, but it's, to me, it's exciting to have a lesbian protagonist, because I feel like, so not just in theater, but I feel like in television too. Like, if you go to Logo, it's so much about gay men that, it's been so many years since we had shows like The L Word.
Yeah.
So
there's also she does, especially in the book, she talks a lot also about other, like, getting her period, discovering masturbation, and all of these things that I feel like women aren't usually talking about. Like, so we do see it sometimes and stuff, but it's usually like kind of like a no. Women aren't supposed to like talk about these things.
I mean, and that's not the only no. I mean, she's talking about her dad's relationship with a lot of these guys that he was dating were underage. They were teenagers. And
even like the way he would go about it was very like...
Yeah. And so she's talking not only about her own like personal taboos, but then the taboos of like her dad hiding these relationships as well.
And it's like, and also just, I think it's such a unique thing in like that she discovers herself, and then through that reevaluates her entire life.
Yes. I really appreciate that. I wrote a note on it. I said, she literally, in the play, we have her like, we have three versions of Allison. We have like little Allison, then we have what they call middle Allison, which is like Allison in college years, and then we have Allison at her current age, Allison, who's the narrator. And she's literally looking back on her life and piecing things together and making sense of them.
Because all of a sudden, like, certain things, like, oh, that time when mom was really stressed out, now it makes sense. It was about the time that my dad was getting brought up on charges for giving a boy a beer that was 17.
Right. And I mean, and obviously as a kid, you're not cognizant really of what's happening. And the mom knew that it was more than just a beer. Because
I mean, obviously I from what I got was the mom knew a lot more, but was just in denial.
Yeah, that's the way she presents it, is that the mom, like, the mom,
much exactly what was
mom's
going on.
Just accepting everything that's going on,
And it's also like, just, it's such a sad thing, like even like her showing her mom's like being full of life in this beginning of this relationship with her father, and then like through the passport photo, like here's her on her first passport to visit my dad to get married, and she's all like luminescent and happy and smiling, and then the next passport photo is her and the dad with two of the children, and she's just stone-faced and tired-looking. And
it almost makes me a little sad, though, that I wish there was like a Fun Home 2 book or a musical where she explores her relationship with her mom. And maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because she wasn't very close to her mom, but at the same time, you feel like not only did the mom get second shrift in her marriage because she was married to a man who liked men, but then she kind of gets second shrift in this play because because the play is exploring really Allison either coming out or coming out in a relationship to like her dad's struggles.
I mean, I took it as that she wrote this book because she was starting to be able to find connections between her and her dad, which she never was able to do before as much. And I think that she's still just maybe at this point, or she already had and didn't want to talk about it, doesn't just have those connections with her mom. They seem like they're very different people. And even in the play, like they have those little things, but she's like, she doesn't even want to tell her mom she got her period.
Yeah.
And, like she reads lines with her mom, but like there's still like a very distance between them.
And there's that moment in the play where she's trying to come out to her parents, and her dad basically is the one who relates to her by being like, here, read this. I'm giving you these books to read to understand it, because he understands it himself, having struggled with it himself, lived it. But yeah, it does. It does.
Mom, I mean, when
it does bum me out a bit whenever I see a woman character, and this obviously, like side characters are made to be side characters, but it does bum me out whenever I see like, especially the mom characters be like second shift, because like as women get older, I mean, they don't always get these meaty roles.
She also might
not that the actress who played her was that old.
Like some resentment towards her mom, because her mom, when she came out, first thing was kind of not a very positive response.
Yeah.
To her, like I mean, neither of her parents were, but in different ways.
Right, but I think her mom, her opinion was more like, oh, now I have to deal with it with my kid because I had to deal with it with my husband.
Like her just all of a sudden unleashing everything about her father to her, which is, you could argue, is like not her place to say.
Right.
Like making it about her when her daughter's trying to come out to her, like she might harbor some still resentments or towards that, and maybe she just didn't want to explore into that yet, because maybe this was a pretty heavy thing to explore into, so maybe it's just going to take a while for her to explore into her relationship with her mother.
Yeah.
Also, it's harder, I feel like, to explore relationship with the parents if they're still alive, like if you don't necessarily have a extremely positive relationship with them.
No, that is true. I don't actually know if her mom is still alive or not. I just assume so.
Yeah, I think I just assumed as well.
Yeah. But if you know otherwise, I know she might not even have shared that, some people like private lives are still private to some extent, so we might not even know.
I do want to touch upon like her coming out and the way that she figured this out, because it's such like an interesting kind of way that like to find out this about yourself is to like go to the library and read a book and then find more books and more books and more books, and then like just start seeing yourself more and more in all these people and being like, wait.
Yeah, I feel like part of that was because she reacts or relates to things in an intellectual way. And so does her dad. So like her dad's advice was like, read this book. And like for her, that just like opened up a floodgates of like, oh, this is how I'm going to like intellectually understand it. And at the time she was in college, she's like in her 40s.
She's in her 40s when she was in
college in like the late 80s, early 90s.
I was having a hard time trying to place exactly the years of the musical, because like when I first saw the Tony Awards production, like by the clothing alone, I was thinking 70s.
Well, yeah, I think she was a kid in the 70s.
So she would have been in college probably late 80s.
Late 80s, early 90s, yeah. And I think that like in the late 80s, early 90s, people were feeling, there was still a taboo, but people were feeling a little bit more comfortable coming out. But I think that her coming from like a small rural town where her dad was already closeted, it was like, you see this moment of her being hesitant to even go to the like LGBT center when she's like invited to the center by Joan. Mm-hmm. So I think she has for her, it was much easier to be like, okay, I'm having a hard time like reaching out and like interacting with these people because I don't know what to do. And so reading was like the best thing that she knew how to do, or the best way for her to cope.
Yeah. I do appreciate that throughout the play that they have her like writing the story as it's happening. So she's like scribbling out stuff as the play is going. She's like, scratch that, rewrite, like caption. So I really like that they brought that aspect of it like from page to stage. I guess that's the best way to say it, page to stage. It was just fun because like I had no idea that this was a graphic novel at first. And I don't like think like, you know, when you go see a play, like a lot of people wouldn't think like, oh, this might be a novel, I should go read. So
I'd love to see more, because like we've had plays from novels, like Les Mis is a novel, but I don't know if they're
such a personal thing too.
Yeah, I don't know if there have been any plays made out of other plays, like big Broadway plays made out of a graphic novel.
There might be in more like not musical way.
Right.
But in musical, I don't think that there really
I would just, I love graphic novels, so I would love to see another play made from a graphic novel. And this graphic novel was interesting because you're right. It was something so very personal, because usually when people think of graphic novels, they think like superheroes.
Yeah, like Watchmen.
Yeah.
I read Moss and Moss too. Like, they're all like an exterior story.
Right. And something usually like fantasy based or something.
And this novel is very raw. Like she gets into a lot of stuff that is very personal.
I feel like with this and with the play, you have to have like a whimsical medium to examine something so heavy, because not only do they like live and work in a funeral home, but then it's like you're dealing with problems of coming out, and you're dealing with problems of like your dad with underage people. And
I also appreciate the comedy they bring into it, because you know, whenever you're in a job where you're dealing with death, or when you're dealing with just a lot of very hard things on you, you have to make light of them almost to be able to cope with it.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't just sit there and be
because it's
focused
too
on the depression all the time.
If it's too heavy, you just don't. So
you want
to check out.
Yeah,
you know,
so
you're like, I can't handle
the fact that they call the funeral home the fun home.
Yeah,
and stuff like that. Whereas like a third party might be like, wow, that's really dark and disrespectful. Like, why are you calling this that? Why are you wanting to get into the graves of these people? But it's like, one, these are all these kids knew.
Right.
They didn't know any different. And two, you know, like I said, like you have to take away the sadness factor of it, especially if you're around it all the time.
Yeah.
Which is why like it's so interesting but so real that when her father does die, that she doesn't have this over emotional reaction. She's been around death her whole life, so to her it's not necessarily like this knee-jerk I'm crying reaction, plus her relationship was strained with her father.
Yeah, I think it's also surreal to her because like she thinks her father, like her ultimate conclusion is that her father committed suicide, but it's
never been proven.
It's never been proven. And so like I think part of it is like trying to figure out how to deal with that mystery, how to like look back on your past and kind of understand it. And I think for her, like the therapy is in like piecing things together, and she's still kind of in that state of like, or at least at the point that she wrote the graphic novel, and at the point that the play was written, you're still in that state of like discovery and shock, and not quite like your grieving comes later.
I will say, along with what you said about the mother, that I would have enjoyed getting to know the brothers a little bit more too. Because I feel like we got even less of them.
Yeah, and I mean, we got less of them as they got older. Like you have this, like the song we played at the beginning. You have this great song where they're all.
I think that's why I want more of them, is because they seem to have a good relationship with each other.
Yeah. So I
wanted to see some more of like this like happy relationships.
Right. Well, you're curious like what happens to everybody when they get older, and like how do they relate, and if they're straight, how do they relate all to this? But if they're gay, how do they relate all? Like, we don't know enough information about them.
All we know is that, which it took me a little while even with reading the book to piece together that there was two brothers, because she doesn't even like really state that another brother came in there, but then all of a sudden there was just 3 pictures.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, so there's another brother.
There's another brother. He's there.
But yeah, it's like we don't get too much about them at all. Like, besides the fact that they hung out as kids, they played in the funeral home. They went on that camping trip and saw the snake.
And again, it's like what you said earlier with the mom, when people are alive, again, I'm making this assumption that they're still alive. And when they're alive, maybe she has a good relationship with them and doesn't want to talk about them when they're older out of like, respect for their privacy or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a test to her writing and to this play that you want to get to know these characters more.
Yeah, they're all really fascinating. Yeah,
if they weren't written well, you wouldn't care about them and you wouldn't want to know them.
Right. She has a way of really captivating an audience in a short amount of time. And it's the same thing, graphic novels it's a novel, so it's a little bit longer than, a comic book, but it's still short. And the play itself is only one act. So you have this short amount of time where you really get to know people.
I do love in the play that like all the boyfriends basically are one person.
Yeah, I love that too, because it's just, it's almost making this point that it's like, he's just looking for somebody and it's a guy.
Yeah.
And it almost doesn't matter who, just because he knows he's gay and he's just reaching out to like some guy, any guy, to like make a connection. And
it gets so like also with like the boyfriends coming out and stuff, and like once her mother has told her and she's discovering this, and they have that one song where there's just the yelling between the parents and then him being like, everyone in this town knows who I am. It's just like you think about that and you think about being kids, how much kids pick up on that adults don't think they pick up on. Like how
much kids understand certain things on like a fundamental level that you can't really like express or explain till you're older. My favorite song is the song about the butch lesbian who comes in with the keys, the one that we're gonna play later on. But I love that song just because you have these kind of like dichotomous things happening where she as a writer is looking back and giving voice to herself when she was younger and explaining things. But still, as a kid, she knew that this woman walked in and there was something that she connected with this woman, and maybe she couldn't quite explain it or put her hands on it. So you have this great moment where you have like adult Allison reaching out to younger Allison to be like, here, I'll fill in the pieces here of what you were experiencing.
There's also the sadness afterwards of like her father being like, is that how you want to dress? Yeah. Or is that how you want to look? And her knowing immediately that she can't say yes, like that's not the right answer for him.
Right. Which is so, and then of course it's like her father's dealing with his own like issues of like, well, this has to look right and this has to go here and like the windows have to look like this. So he has these very specific ideas about things and he doesn't give her room to have her own specific ideas.
He's been controlling literally all of his kids' lives.
Right.
Down to like the cleaning and stuff. Like there's no room for love and emotion when it comes to that.
So that, then I felt great when she got to go off to college and she sings this like whimsical song about I'm majoring in Joan when she
never leaves the bed.
Yeah. And I love that moment for her too, because you feel like she's been in this like small town and she's been in this controlling atmosphere and she kind of gets this moment of real freedom and she's really happy and it's so like cute because she kind of doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. It's like she's been told her whole life like one thing and she just knows that she doesn't want the one thing that she's supposed to want, which is men. But she doesn't know that she wants women. And there's this woman walks into her life and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted.
And I have to say that actress, I forgot to write down
Roberta Colindres? The one who plays Joan?
No, the one who plays Little Allison.
Small Allison or Medium Allison?
Small Allison.
Sydney Lucas.
She got nominated for a Tony and
she was great.
You're gonna see when you see it in the clip. Like the girl I saw the tour, and the girl I saw on the tour was wonderful. But there's just something about her performance. The original Broadway actress who got nominated for Tony, there's something about her performance that's so captivating and makes you so believe that she's young, like that she's really young Allison.
You'll see it in her eyes.
Yeah, it's this when she is singing about the lady with the keys, you're really feeling like this girl has made a
Like
connection.
you're wanting almost the camera to pan over to so you can see the lady with the
Yeah,
keys.
yeah, because you feel like she really has made a connection. It's all in her like eyes and in her voice about like how much she feels about this moment, this aha moment.
We do have Jeff Graham, who is a host here and has been on the show a couple times. He wanted to be here today. He couldn't be here, but he wanted to give us his thoughts on the musical and the book because he's seen and
I
read
hope he
both and
wasn't
loves it.
actually I'm looking at this video. I hope he wasn't actually driving.
I think he's parked.
Okay.
I've watched the video and I'm pretty
Don't
sure he's
drive
parked.
and send us videos.
But we're going to play the video that he sent us with his thoughts on it.
Hello, Bree and Broadway Breakdown crew. I'm here to talk about Fun Home. My name is Jeff Graham. If you guys want to find me online, you can do so at Jeffrey C. Graham. I've been on the show before for super fans. I was also in the Jersey Boys episode. But I'm here today to talk about Fun Home. Okay, I love this book and I love this show, and I'm excited to talk about kind of my overall thoughts of both the book and the show. I was exposed to the book almost exactly 4 years ago. One of my friends was like, Jeff, I read this book. It's called Fun Home. You need to read it. So I did, but before I read it, he kind of pitched me. He's like, so this is this graphic memoir written by a lesbian cartoonist about her father's suicide. And I was like, that doesn't necessarily sound like a book I would connect with because I'm obviously not a lesbian cartoonist with a dad who killed himself. But what amazed me so much about this book was that I connected to it on a very deep and personal level. Alison Bechdel, I think, has done this amazing thing where she has written something incredibly specific and niche, but somehow managed to universalize it and kind of write this dramatic retelling of a family story. And I think she's like kind of miraculously managed to just tell a dysfunctional family dramedy that anyone can connect to who grew up in a family, which is everyone. So I read this book in like one sitting. I love it so much. I think it's an amazing book. It's filled with a lot of literary allusions that are really kind of well integrated and smart. And I kind of think in a lot of ways it was just a book made for me, and I loved it. That being said, I was really, really excited when I found out they were developing it into a show. I was a bit skeptical because having read the book, I didn't at all envision it as a musical. But I like Jeanine Tesori and Lisa Kron, and I was like, okay, I like their previous work. There's a good chance. I think this is well-matched material. So I went to go see this show in February at the Pantages. I think February. You can check those dates. But I just saw the show at the Pantages recently. When I go see musicals, I don't really like to listen to too much of the music before because I like to go in and be kind of surprised. I still haven't really listened to the Hamilton soundtrack because eventually I'll see that show when it doesn't cost $16 million. But I went in to Fun Home not knowing much, and I really, really liked the show. Music first, I think it's really, really wonderful, beautiful, elegant music. I think that show especially writes these confessional songs that weave so effortlessly into the plot that it's kind of astounding. I think it's like really wonderful, beautiful, rich, emotional music. So I really like the music in this show. As to my overall thoughts of the show, I think it's a really good show. I don't know if I think it's like an amazing show like other people do. To be honest, I think that reading the book is an overall more satisfying experience. Something about the show felt a little incomplete to me. And the more I think about it, the more I think that might be kind of the point. There's a lot of moments in the music, for example, where the lyrics in the music will kind of not finish their thought. They'll kind of leave you hanging. So in Ring of Keys, for example, which is one of the huge songs of the show, young Alison will say, I want, and she won't finish her thought. And so it's kind of this incomplete thing, and you're left to fill in the gaps. And it's really true to life because a lot of times we're not able to fully express our emotions when our hearts are full, I guess, which is kind of the point of a lot of the decisions that are made in the show. But in a way that kind of all added up to me in a way that felt incomplete at the end of my viewing experience. Something about it didn't feel totally narratively fulfilling to me in the way that the book does. That being said, I think it's a really beautiful show. I think it's a really special show, and I think it's a show that everyone can see. Like the book, they've managed to create a very specific experience of this lesbian from small town Pennsylvania with a suicidal father, and created something that amazingly everyone can connect to. So I think that's really, really special. In terms of like, I know you do diva songs as a segment, Brie. I think I don't know if I necessarily have a diva song because it is a very female-driven show. But in general, I think the music in this show is completely sensational in the best way. It's very moving, very sensitive, very emotional, and very poetic. So I think, to me, the music in this show is really, really what makes it special. And of course, the performances in the original production are amazing. And last thing I'll say, the choice to... Oh, I'm still here. Last thing I'll say is the choice to have 3 Alisons on stage is really amazing. I think like that was an incredibly risky choice that pays off in spades in the show. Of course, the final number features all 3 Alisons, and I thought it was kind of amazing in the way that like when Rent was first staged, it was amazing. Like there's things about the show that I think are incredible. So those are my thoughts on Fun Home. Having seen it, I really enjoyed it. It's a very emotional, moving experience, and I would recommend anyone to go see the show, especially theater fans. Thanks, guys.
That was so nice of him to send us in that. Because I know he had seen the musical when it came
was great
through.
for him to drop his phone too.
I know, right? I agree with how he feels about the novel, and I have like a response to that because he saw it at the same place I saw it, which is not the Pantages, it's the Ahmanson, and I know that I know that he probably got confused just because the Pantages usually has all the Broadway musicals, and the Ahmanson has a bit more experimental. But for whatever reason, this was at the Ahmanson. And the Ahmanson, the point I'm making about this is that the way it was in the Ahmanson is, I feel like the Broadway space, now I've never seen the theater it was in, I've never been in that theater, but from watching clips online of the original Broadway production, the space seemed more intimate. And the space in the Ahmanson, they tried to make it intimate with the staging, but it's still, it's still like a, it's like a thrust / proscenium stage because it's like a proscenium. It doesn't thrust that much, but the proscenium, it's not circular like a proscenium stage. So you're in a big theater space, but you're supposed to be getting these intimate moments. And I think that for me, I kind of felt like, oh, how cool would it be if they did this like Theater in the Round or something like that? And it seems to be that's kind of how it was staged for the Broadway musical. So I do think it gets lost in translation in some of these touring spaces just because of that. And I think also like when I went back and saw online the Broadway cast, there are, and not to say that there was anything wrong with the touring cast, I just think specifically for me, the young Alison, like there was something that connected with me more than the one in the touring cast. And then Michael Cerveris he won the Tony for this.
Yeah, he's great.
And he is like a Broadway legend. And so, it's kind of hard to watch a show that he originated and then like...
Well, and I will say that, based off the fact, he loved the novel, Jeff did. And it is going to be a hard test to, when you love something so much, to go see a adaptation of it and love it as much as you loved the original.
Right.
I mean, that happens all the times with books to film. Because you can't put everything that's in the book in the film, and just like that, you can't put everything in the book in the musical. It's too much.
Yeah.
So you will lose stuff, and like maybe I think different people will take it different ways. Different people will go in and love what they did with it, and different people might be like, I wish that they could have done a little more. Not that, he obviously still liked the musical, just wanted a more of a complete feeling from it.
I think it's that feeling that when we have when we saw something first and then the thing that you see second, it doesn't have that same electric feeling if you really connected to the first thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we always talk about that with like whether you saw the musical or the movie first.
Yeah, you would just tend to go gear towards whichever one you fell in love with first.
Yeah. I actually think this would make to the right director and the right actors, if they pulled the original cast, it would make a great like indie film.
But would you want it to be a musical film or would you want it to be a straight film?
I would want it to be a musical film, but I think that obviously you'd have to make certain changes. Like I would almost have like Alison by herself and then intercut rather than having her be present on stage like she is in the musical, because that doesn't read as well in film.
Yeah.
But I do think that it could make a great like indie art house movie, and then you could go see it in those like small intimate theaters.
We are running a little low on time, so I do want to get to the Tony Award video that we're going to pull up in just a second. This won Best Musical, Best Book of a Musical, Best Original Score, Best Leading Actor for Michael Severus, and Best Direction of a Musical. It was also nominated for Best Leading Actress for Beth Malone, Best Featured Actress for Judy Collins, Sydney Lucas, and Emily Skaggs, and Best Orchestrations, Best Scenic Design, Best Lighting Design, and that's the end of that one. But you can see they won and nominated were for lots. This I think was the takeaway one that year, the one that like kind of overshadowed
this was 2015 big musical that year,
so 2 years ago. So we're going to play the clip right now, which you'll see Sydney Lucas and what we were talking about before.
In this panel, me and my dad in a diner.
Where's Betty?
She went home. Lorna's on now.
Caption, my dad and I both grew up in the same small Pennsylvania town.
Oh.
And I didn't know it, but both of us were gay.
Where's your beret?
And we were exactly alike.
Put it back in. Keeps the hair out of your eyes.
So what a crew cut.
And we were nothing alike.
I will say that Michael
Not take
Severus'
it out
talking
again.
voice
Which was
is
it, Dad?
exactly what I imagined when reading the book. With
He
this kind of
has
drawl.
a great way of imagining characters. I've seen him live in a different production, and he's
You
just
didn't notice her at first, Dad, but I
electric.
did. I saw her the minute she walked in. I'd never seen a woman who looked like her. It was like I was a traveler in a foreign country who runs into someone from home. Someone they've never met before, but somehow just recognizes.
Someone just came in the door, like no one I ever saw before. I feel. I don't know where you came from. I wish I
And that's kind of the
did.
stuff Jeff was talking about, where she can't complete her thought.
Your swagger and your bearing and the just right clothes you're wearing, your short hair and your dungarees and your lace-up boots and your keys, oh, your ring of keys.
I love that the last thing that she's like talking about with such earnest is this ring of keys she has.
yeah.
I thought it was supposed to be wrong, but you seem okay with being strong. I want. You're so. It's probably conceited to say, but I think we're alike in a certain way.
And the reason she doesn't finish all those lines is because she's discovering it.
Yeah, and she's trying to take everything in, and
Yeah.
she can't hone in on one of these things. I do love the orchestrations in this musical.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that they keep most of the like music, even when they're talking about sad things, more uplifting, because it is such intense subject matter.
Yeah.
Do you feel my heart saying hi? In this whole luncheonette, why am I the only one who sees you're beautiful? No, I mean handsome.
I do love that line too.
I do too. And I mean, this song also evokes the unspoken language between two people that obviously this lady might not have known this little girl was gay, but like when you're gay people in a really small community, there is an unspoken language that you two can understand when you're in a community where you can't say it. And so that's one of the things I love that the song expresses. It's like, why can't everybody else see this thing that I see, and I've connected with you on this personal level without having to say anything?
Also, just the final stare of her dad, like realizing this, his daughter staring at this woman.
Yeah.
It's just there's something And like, you're right. Like, she conveys so much emotion for you in this short little period of time.
Oh, yeah.
And like, for a child to, like, I'm just amazed all the time with children when they're on these shows and stuff, and how much emotion they can have.
The thing is, like, I have
I'm like, you haven't even gone through anything in your life yet. How do you have this emotion right now?
I mean, I give child actors a pass for so many things, because it's like, you can't at that age completely fathom everything.
Yeah,
or understand
there's no way you
everything.
can have had the life experiences as an adult has had.
Right.
Yet.
To be able to express
Unless you've
that.
had a really, really intense childhood, which I hope never for any child to have.
Right. And that's why I was impressed by this little girl. It's like she was able to connect to that, being a young girl, being able to like understand those concepts, this little actress.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. So that's about all I have, and we are just about out of time. Do you have anything you wanted to add before?
I just want to tell you guys that we're going to be on a 2-week hiatus because of the 4th of July, and then we're coming back and doing Legally Blonde.
On July 16th, we'll be back for that one, which is such a fun show.
Get ready for your bend and snap.
We're going to go on the opposite and go away from any sadness and just go into happiness for a while.
Yes.
So we will see you guys on July 16th for that, and have a great 4th of July and be safe. Until then, you guys can find me at bfips14 on Twitter and Instagram.
And I'm 123 Jackie B on all platforms.
Have a great 4th of July weekend, guys.
Producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Spitek, Christian Harloff, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners or principals.